Turbulence. Why turbulence? We've had successive governments who've considerably changed the educational landscape. We're going through at the moment one of the most significant educational changes probably since the Education Act of 1988. And it's been against that backcloth of turbulence that this school both was opened and has begun its journey of transformation. This is our commitment to our parents. When I first was asked to persuade parents to send their children here, there had not been a single parent express a preference for a school on this site for the previous 10 years. We promise our parents that we'll deliver the best results in the best facilities and with the best staff. That's a very bold commitment. The facilities are wonderful, but parents are more astute these days. They don't just pick a school because of the quality of the building. Although we've been in this building for 7 years, and I hope you cannot tell. Getting the best staff is also extremely challenging. Persuading adults to invest their careers in a school such as this, in a location such as this, is also extremely challenging. The challenge is not only to get them to come, but once we've got them, to then nurture them, develop them, and ensure that they retain their sobriquet as the best available staff. And results are extremely challenging in a context like this, and I'll talk a bit more about those results in a moment. Our values and our commitment to our parents is that our values are our students' rights. Access, choice, and freedom from discrimination are this organisation's values, and they're our students' rights. Teachers make more decisions about access to learning for young people every day than they make decisions about most anything else. How they plan, deliver, and scaffold access to learning to ensure that children can learn in the way they need to learn and to make the progress they need to make is the most fundamental decision that teachers make every day. And that's why teachers are not technicians, they're artists. Our values are our students' rights. Lots of the young people here are somewhat the victims of all sorts of factors in their lives which disadvantage them, socially, economically, culturally, and in all sorts of other ways. When we talk to one another here about how we overcome some of those disadvantages, as our young people enter this school and go upon their journey, we agree that something absolutely fundamental is critical to our young people's ability to learn. And that is that we will know, understand, and value our young people non-negotiably, like you do as a parent. Known, valued, and understood. Knowing young people relies not only on talking to them, but also on data. Understanding them is not an end point, it's a journey. I've got a 24-year-old son who's just re-entered the human race. Valuing is something that often is withdrawn by teachers. Many of you will have had an experience as a learner where perhaps an adult or a teacher in the school you were at demonstrated that they valued you non-negotiably and the transformational effect that had possibly on your journey as a learner. When I was asked to come here, we were charged with the responsibility of transformation, to do something radically different, to do something that had not been done before in a setting such as this. And there were other schools across the nation being asked to do similar things. So when a government invested nigh on 20-odd million pounds in an enterprise such as this, they expected radical transformation in outcomes for learners and the quality of their experience. It was against this background of the current government. The Labour government were unashamedly top down. They even got in the classroom. They were telling teachers how to teach. We had the Key Stage strategy, we had the National Challenge strategy, we had the literacy strategy. This government is slightly different. This government, or this coalition, have changed everything. And there are 4 complementary or competing strands depending on your perspective. The first is that we're going to change our curriculum and benchmark it against world standards. So it's about raising your game. You'll have seen the results about PISA. And this country's performance in maths and English, they've played down a little bit this week. This country's rather stronger performance on problem solving, and not surprisingly the Chinese are over here at the moment to find out what we're doing with our young people, which makes them collaborative and good at solving problems. They're going to solve that problem, they tell us, in 2 years. Then we have the freedom to teach approach. You know best, you get on and do it. But by the way, strong accountability. The third strand, the survival of the fittest. Education is a marketplace. We compete for resources, we compete for young people, we compete for social and emotional capital, we compete for parental preference, we compete at post-16 for learners. We're in a market. we compete for staff. And then over on the right-hand side, the mitigation, which is about the system-led approach. In other words, schools in the system, improving the system and leading the system. It's somewhat a compensation to the other three strands. But we have a word in education that you won't have come across. It's called collaboration. We both collaborate with our partner schools and compete with them to see them off. That's a massive tension in the world of education. And so what we have in the world of education is teachers responsible for their own improvement, for making it better if they can. We have teachers and schools, both within organisations and between organisations, seeking to learn from one another. We have the best schools, depending on how that's defined, and leaders of those schools leading the system and owning the system. I'll explain a bit more about the system in a moment. And finally, we have a government that intervenes when they're not satisfied that which is happening is suitable. So that's the national picture, which kind of defines the turbulence against which individual schools operate. We were asked to open in 2007, and when I was asked to come here as the principal, people thought I was professionally committing suicide. This school, or school on this site, had been reopened and rebranded 4 previous times, on 4 previous occasions, each and every time with only small episodes of failure. We opened with 875 learners. Frankly, a lot of the learners that were here in 2007 were young people who had been turned away from other schools. In year 11, we had 70 learners who'd been asked to leave their previous schools. That's 70 out of 105. No first preferences. Persuading parents such as you to send your children to a school such as this was a mighty challenge. Acute social deprivation, our indicator for social disadvantage, is free school meals. If we take a 6 and ever measure of that, in other words, how many children in the school have had free school meals at some point during the last 3 to 6 years, it's 95%. So the 46% on free school meals hides a much deeper pattern of social disadvantage. We're a slightly unusual profile of school. 75% of our children are white. The vast majority of them come off the Homewood estate. 11% of our children are of Pakistani heritage, and 21% are English as a second language. This particular area is a gateway location for youngsters and families coming into this country. We had prior attainment at the lowest 1% nationally. Lowest 1%. Actually, in terms of attainment, we were also in the bottom 1%. So they arrived with poor attainment and they left with poor attainment. In the year I first arrived here, 40% of our children left with no qualifications whatsoever. And 30% of our school population went to no education, employment and training on their journey. 40%. And persistent absence in year 11 was 50%. In other words, half of year 11 never came to school. So attendance was incredibly low. In the first year that we came here, the previous year, 29 children were excluded from the school permanently. And 4,000 days of learning were lost to what we call temporary exclusion. The school had a revolving door at the front because most children came, told someone to off, and then, it was working, and then were asked to leave. And lots of violence as well. The school was just over there and it was demolished. So that's the kind of backcloth against which we were working. Rather alarmingly, the core function of the organisation wasn't right. So we took 37 teachers from their predecessor school, and when we observed them teaching and worked alongside them in the year that the school closed and before this one opened, less than 40% of the core practice of the school was less than good, and nearly a quarter was woefully inadequate. So the core function wasn't happening. Then you looked at a picture of young people not having English, maths and science teachers, and if they did, frequently for less than a month with any one individual. Where we are now is 80% of the teaching is good and better, and a quarter is outstanding. I'll talk a little bit about how that journey's been achieved now. So in a context such as this, there are powerful arguments that improvement cannot be secured. There are unequivocal and powerful arguments about why it cannot be done. People are very good at throwing those arguments in the way of transformation. And in my experience of leadership, the challenge isn't to get the new ideas in. Generally, people have an appetite for that. At least they'll pretend to be interested in new ideas. The biggest challenge is to get people to articulate the ideas and assumptions they have in their practice which prevent them from making the difference to children's lives. That's a significant leadership challenge. What is it that's not said, but is articulated in our actions that stops us improving? So we decided here that we would do things differently. Now, innovation is an interesting concept. One of the most innovative things we did at this school was to do the things that you would expect a school to do if it were good. At this school, that was innovation. That meant children came on time. The first morning I came to a school on this site, 372 children arrived after 10 o'clock. They had breakfast and left. Children are well dressed. They behave appropriately by choice. They respect each other. They respect the adults in this building. And more importantly, because they are affirmed, they come with an appetite and an attitude for learning. That's a difference. Similarly, we looked at the way that schools were organised, and we decided where we thought we could get a dividend in our practice, we would do things differently. One of the particular differences we have in this school is that we spend half an hour each day with young people in what we call a home team. And a home team is a family unit at the heart of this school. It's got children of all ages in it, normally a class of less than 20, and they meet for half an hour each day in the middle of the day. And it's how we build the community and sense of belonging in this school. It's led by an adult who we think of as the parent of the children in that family, the home team. They're called the learning guide, and it's that colleague that works with parents. There's something very beautiful about seeing children of all ages both talking to one another, discussing with one another, and learning with one another. And they do that for 4 sessions each week in the middle of the day. It's so important. We give it a premium slot in the day. And each home team belongs to an extended family called a house. Many of you will recognise the notion of a house. That's the extended family that children belong to. When parents communicate with us, they speak to the learning guide, who's the parent of the family their children belong to. And so in a school such as this, where there are 1,800 children, our children belong to a family unit of 20, where they have an identity and recognise other young people. We're also all through. We opened as an 11 to 18 school, although there were very few young people staying here beyond 18. But less than 3 years ago, we secured £5 million additional capital, and we converted ourselves to all through. So we now have a nursery, and we have children who come here formally at age 4 into our reception class, and we've extended that now up to year 3. So we've got a gap in the middle. But parents at this school don't just choose a school at 11. We have parents who've invested the whole of their children's education in this school, from nursery to 19. What a privilege is ahead to ask parents to do such a thing, and what a risk. So we're all through. The specialism of this school is citizenship with enterprise. And why would we choose that? Frankly, there was lots of evidence of student voice at the previous school. It was written all over the walls in the toilets. What we want are young people with a well-informed voice. My anxiety, contemporarily, is that far too many people think their right to have a voice means they can talk whatever they like, however they like. They don't instill in themselves the challenge of being well-informed and knowledgeable before they articulate their well-informed opinion. Have a voice that's well-informed. Our young people are going to grow up to be parents, electors, consumers, employers, employees. Many young people in our city work in commercial units that employ less than 3 people. So in this school, we nurture the notion that our young people are responsible as agencies of change, to develop a well-informed voice, to articulate their views in a respectful and appropriate manner, and to develop their knowledge and understanding so that when they leave this organisation, we can be confident that they'll go out into their communities as agents of change for improvement in the areas they choose to live and work. And we do that in partnership. Tamina talked about our relationship with Stephen. We've got people on the board of this school and in other ways who challenge and support us to be better than we were previously. And we believe in that strength of partnership with people such as yourselves and with parents and with other organisations that can shine a light on what it is we do and secure the improvement that we have the ambition to have. Now, we were asked to do 2 things when we opened because we took children from the predecessor school. What a horrible thing to describe it as. A school just across here. Youngsters came across. They really had youth club type behaviours and attitudes, and they were pretty shocked when we asked them to learn maths and English. And what we had to do each year as those young people came through is raise the bar. Now, data's an interesting thing, isn't it? So when we got the results of this school at the end of the first year, I had a journalist from the Times phone me up to ask me if I wanted to make a comment about the fact the school was in the bottom 200 schools for performance at year 11. And I said I was absolutely delighted we spent the last 25 years in the bottom 10. So what we were asked to do is to transform the lives of children who'd already had the first 4 years of their secondary education. And this is what happened. The predecessor school got 5%, 5 GCSEs, including Maths and English. And in our first year, we got 18. When I was appointed, I was asked to go to London, and I was asked what I thought the school could achieve by the end of its third year on this key measure. And I said that by the end of the third year, I thought we could get to 25%. The minister and his senior officers thought that I was overselling the proposition. To get to 25% had not happened anywhere else nationally. In the third year, when we were at 24, I was summoned to London and asked if I thought I should resign. Because in London, transformation happens like that. Because they forget that this is children whose learning is accelerating and achievements are improving. But I think that's a pretty good graph, isn't it? What this means is that this year, we will be a little shy of national average. We're taking children in year 7 who are in the bottom 1% nationally for prior attainment, and by the time they leave year 11, they're broadly national average. I think that's a remarkable story of the investment of parents, children, and staff here. On this other key measure, and we've gotten to 75, 5 good GCSEs. The government have changed the rules on that. It used to be the key measure, and midway through our children's journey to year 11, they decided it wasn't a measure anymore. So we're not sure what we'll get on that measure this year. This is a more inclusive measure. This is young people leaving with qualifications of any kind. Well, even here, look, we had 29% of children still leaving with nothing. Okay, we think it'll be 100% this year. Post-16, this is a remarkable story. Young people have a choice at 16 about where they want to learn. And at this school, we had less than 20. Now we have 400 youngsters. We have 400 young people who've invested their futures by staying in this school for their post-16 education. Our results at post-16 are better than the national picture. We have now more than 300 young people who've gone off to university, and just this last week, our first alumni who's been away and got a degree qualified as a teacher, and I've appointed her to teach English here in September. Young people and parents vote with their feet, don't they? Look, that means children are taking a day a week off. This means that the average is half a day a week. 94 is above national average. This is absence. When you're challenging absence rather than attendance, what you're biting into are all the challenges that young people experience in actually bringing themselves to school, the parenting responsibilities they have, or the lack of social and rigour in their own family circumstances, sometimes even the facility to get here. You know, I've seen children walking into school in the mornings in the snow without footwear properly tied to their feet. So when we're trying to do this, whilst the government sets us a target to reduce it, what we're dealing with are the social challenging issues that many of the young people who have this pattern are experiencing in their lives. We're a quality organisation, you would expect us to be, across the broad reach of our commitment to what we do. If we're saying we want to be the best school, then we want to be the best school and best organisation we can possibly be. So how do we do it? Values at the core of the school. Values at the core of the school. We have worked hard to engage young people and learners in their journey. We've shared, articulated and agreed the values with the people that learn and work here. We've built a robust and rigorous professional learning culture. Teachers who choose to come and work here also choose to learn together. They expose their practice to the scrutiny of their colleagues. And we have a coherent approach, a defined and agreed approach to some of the key practices in the school. We have leaders right across the organisation. We're a system leader in providing professional learning for leadership development across the organisation, both for teachers and for associate staff. The ethos of the school is articulated, so we're a Christian school, but we take children of all and no faith, and their parents understand that that's a commitment in their journey through this organisation. I actually asked the senior team of the predecessor school what their key roles were. I went around a room of 8 people at the predecessor school, and no one mentioned learning, behaviour, leadership. So the core functions of an organisation, no one on the leadership was responsible for them. And so articulating alignment between what we do, who we do it with, and how we make sure that's aligned to what the organisation is doing was absolutely critical. Starting with myself and across other colleagues, we're non-negotiable about the standards we have here, and that includes the walk from the car park to the front door. We're absolutely relentless in the pursuit of that ambition to be the very best we can be. I talked about the specialism. The transition from primary school to here, radically different. The way that children learn in our year 7 is radically different. They have a core teacher, they stay together as a class for 2 days a week, and we actually work with our partner primary schools. That in this locality was a remarkably innovative thing to do, to talk to local primary schools about young people before they came to secondary. I talked about the home team. We changed the school day, extended the notion that children would choose to stay and learn here after the school day. We employ a range of people who've got skills that teachers don't necessarily have to work around young people to make sure they get the support when they need it. We monitor what's going on. We work collaboratively. The young people in this school inform and shape what we do. I have a shadow senior leadership team of young people who design and make decisions about how the school will operate and hold me to account. And overall, apart from all this very technical stuff around how we lead, the journey has to be fun. We come to school every day. What gets me up in the morning is the excitement of seeing young people enjoying their learning. And I'm excited about seeing other adults working in this school who share that ambition and share that excitement. We're trying to develop young people who will enjoy both their formal learning and the choices they make before and after school and in our holidays. And then in terms of our journey, Ofsted said we are good. We have 700 preferences for children in Year 7, a sixth form of 400. We've got the fastest growing improvement in terms of attainment nationally. But most importantly, we have the success of knowing that young people leave this school with the resilience, resourcefulness and the ambition to make a difference in the world they're going to live and learn in. Thank you very much.